It was me, but both my hands are here. You want the phone?
What is up, everybody? All five of you. Welcome back, guys. Let's get ready to worship.
Lord, I pray specifically for the next 3 weeks, God, as we fast and as we pray and we just dwell in your presence, God, and just hunger and thirst for more of you, Lord. God, that you would just give us vision, you would speak to us, God, that you would meet us right where we're at, Father. Would you light the fire inside of us again, Father, just to hunger, to ache for you, God. Because without you, God, nothing else matters. Nothing of this world, no food, no drink, none of it matters, God, if we don't have you. So I pray that you would reveal that to us, Father. Give us purpose throughout this fast, Father, and just be with us, Lord. We love you and we thank you. And it's in your name I pray. Amen. Amen, amen, guys. Don't give it up for the worship team. That was good. All right, sit down. Pull out your phones. I got some announcements for you guys. Y'all ready to do this thing? It is so good to see y'all. I'm glad we're back, man. I'm serious. I was missing this. I was like, man, Monday morning chapel, like, where at? And now we're here. So I'm glad we're back. Guys, check your Populi. First of all, check your Populi. If there's anything wrong with the balance, talk to Miss Trisha, set up a meeting, get that figured out. We don't want to start 2022 off, worried about all that money stuff. So go ahead and get that figured out now so you don't have to worry about that. Second thing, I know why once. For some of us, it was a struggle getting our passports. We kind of put it off. We were a little ignorant about it. And some of you were on the ball, but the time has come, guys. We're 1 month away from our mission trip in Honduras. Yes, I'm so excited about what God's going to do while we're in Honduras. It's going to be amazing. Y'all just get prepared, get ready. Prepare your hearts, guys. It's going to be amazing. I'm so excited. So today, we started the fast. I don't know about y'all. I'm already hungry, but lunch is going to be amazing. Can't wait. But anyways, meet with your fasting partner and get that figured out. Sit down, share some goals, share a vision of what you want God to do. Definitely be expectant and be ready to meet God and to experience Him and keep Him on the forefront of your mind. This Wednesday, we will not have devotions. We have pastoral chapel. Make sure to set your alarms and be here at 8:45. We don't know yet. I don't know yet. But that is coming your way on Wednesday. Next Monday, I know we just had a 3-week break and, we had a lot of time off. But next Monday is MLK Day. We don't have school. Aiden is happy about that one. That was a big clap right there. So y'all make sure to mark that in your calendars. We will not have chapel next Monday. And last but not least, we are 3 weeks away from the end of this trimester. Wow, I know it's crazy. So go ahead, you know what to do. Start those course projects. Get that ball rolling. Because if you don't, you're going to do what I did last trimester and you're going to die. So y'all go ahead and get that started. But that does come with some really sad news because Watus, you will be entering your last trimester at City Hill College. I'm excited, bro. A lot of people were crying. When we were doing run through, they were in the back. They were like, oh my gosh, I don't want to go. But anyways, guys, today we have a very special speaker. I said he's like a box of chocolates. You just never know what you're going to get. But you always know one thing. It's definitely going to be funny. He's definitely going to brighten your day. He's going to put you in a good mood. He's going to lift up your spirit. So y'all put your hands together and y'all welcome From Man Joe, baby. Let's go.
Thank you, Aiden. I appreciate you.
We love you,
Wow. Miss Trisha, I wasn't joking when I said the second I put my foot, English, on the stage, I was gonna freak out. Wow, everyone always talks about how, oh no, you're chilling until you actually get on the platform. And they were not kidding. But, Happy New Year. I wonder how long it's gonna take me to stop writing 2021 though, because I always, every time the year changes, I always keep putting the previous year on every piece of paper. Also, joke, when do people stop saying Happy New Year? Okay, anyway, I need one volunteer. Daniel.
do you need me to do?
What's one word that describes your whole? Yeah, you can stay seated. What's one word that describes your whole break in one word? Like how it was.
Restful.
Restful. Okay. Someone else. Anybody else?
Word.
Okay, Kendrick.
Joyful.
Joyful. Ooh, that's a good one, bro. Who traveled? They went to Disney because I saw 9 million Instagram stories about that. Who else? I think me and Robbie. Robbie, you went 24 hours, right?
Well, 20. Yeah.
20 hours. What about you, Lainey?
Oh, just Atlanta.
I actually went to Minnesota for my break, and I think they have a couple of pictures, possibly, maybe a few of them. It's what me. No, I felt like I felt like I put a couple pictures of my trip because it really was. I can't see, so I don't know what you're pointing. But it really was a super restful trip. Anybody get like that New Year's kissy though? No one?
No.
No one got a New Year's kiss?
Did you?
Hey, no. No, I did not. Unfortunately. Anyway. But we are concluding our rest series today, and I really wanted to take just some time to discuss like some practical ways that we can like look at how rest really affects us on like a personal level. And so I grew up Baptist, which is pretty fun. Yee. And my home church I actually meant to like give this to Autumn so she could throw it up, but my home church, their logo, everyone called it toothpaste because it was like 3 different waves all put together with a crest at each end, and it looks like toothpaste, but it was actually a really cool logo because the top layer was, or like the top wave was connecting to God, and then the middle wave was connecting to each other, and the last wave was connecting to the lost world. And so I wanted to, when I was writing this message and like planning it in Minnesota, I was like, okay, so like how can I like shift that to focus on like rest? And so the top wave for me would be how rest affects our relationships with ourselves. And so if you're taking notes, that is the first point, bullet number 1, how rest affects our relationship with ourselves. And to start, for scripture, I'm gonna be starting in, I'm so freaking nervous. I'm gonna be starting in Psalm 55, verse 4 through 7. My heart is in anguish within me. The terrors of death have fallen upon me. Fear and trembling come upon me. And horror overwhelms me, like right now. And I say, oh, that I had wings like a dove. I would fly away and be at rest. Yes, I would wander far away and I would lodge in the wilderness. So obviously, we read that and we're like, yo, this like psalmist is kind of dramatic, as a lot of psalms are when he's talking about like, oh my gosh, like I'm being chased and I'm being, someone's trying to kill me and all this stuff. And there's a lot of different context as to like really what this psalm was for when I was reading a lot of context notes for the ESV Bible and stuff. And they don't really know, because around this time that this psalm was written, David had just been betrayed by Absalom. But there's a lot that points to like self-betrayal with the way that this guy talks. And it was interesting in Minnesota when I was reading this psalm, and I was like, because when we go on vacation, we're always like, if only I could stay here. Like, if only I could just like forget about everything else in the world, especially like in Minnesota in the middle of the woods when it's just snowing. And like I'm with my dog and my little sister, like just chilling. Like, yo, it'd be so sick if I could just like not go back to real life. But unfortunately, real life, it does exist and we have to go back. And I think so many of us, when we get overwhelmed, we end up like this psalmist, just in this whirlwind of betrayal, and like he's so overwhelmed and all this fear and trembling is coming upon him and all this stuff, and he's just like, yo, I'd fly away. It's like the Alan Jackson song, I'd fly. But anyway, and it's interesting that after all of that, So like he spends the whole song complaining pretty much about like this betrayal that happened to him and how he's like so overwhelmed by it, but then he ends it with, "But I will trust in you." And so like so many of us in our personal lives, we like forget about rest because we're always on that grind, you know? We're always slamming the weights, we're always at work, we're trying to pay for school and University Mobile and all this stuff. And we're always so overwhelmed, and in that moment, instead of being like, yo, I'm gonna trust in God and know that like through this, I'm gonna be formed in some way and I'm gonna hit that specific thing, like how God forms us in those times in a second. But like, so many of us just wanna disappear. Because honestly, for me, like when I've spent most of my life running from all my problems. You know, that's why I have issues and other things. But so many of us end up just giving up, you know? When I was reading this song and the way that this psalmist goes about complaining, there were two like distinct, I guess emotions, or like, I don't really know how to word it, but mindsets that Satan wanted to keep this guy in. And the first one I think is he wanted him to feel trapped. I wanted, you know, when I was writing this message, when I met with CP, I was like, I want this to be a funny thing where like I can just keep people laughing the whole time, but like real life isn't really that fun all the time. And so I wanted to share this little quick story about my mom. So I was a freshman at the University of Mobile, like living the absolute life. Is there a certain like how far I can walk for the camera? No? Okay, anyway. And it, like I was able to travel and play music, and I was able to like live on my own and finally escape, because most of you know that my home life wasn't that great growing up. And I was like, yes, like I finally escaped. And I went home for a break, and for no reason, you know, anybody seen Maleficent? You know that scene how the girl like just is like enchanted and she just has to go freaking poke the thing? So I don't really know why I did in that moment, but for literally no reason at all, I walked into my parents' bedroom. They were all at work, and I walked up to this drawer, and I just pulled it out, and I discovered like multiple like bottles of like different vodkas and stuff, and I was like, my mom doesn't drink, that's weird, whatever. And then like I thought about it, and I was like, I've never like known my mom to drink at all. Like, what changed? Because like growing up, my mom was like Northern Baptist, or like super duper strict about like that kind of stuff. And so she like would never even like get anywhere near that. And so I texted my grandmother, because obviously moms know everything about their kids. So if I text my grandmother, she's gonna know everything about my mom. And I texted my grandma, and I was like, hey, so like, I went into my mom's room and I found like a bunch of alcohol, like, and what's going on with that? And then she was like, oh, she just, you know, she works a lot to provide for you to go to school and to provide for your little sister, and sometimes she just has trouble sleeping. And I was like, so what does that have to do with it? And then come to find out, my mom had actually started a severe drinking problem and was drinking herself to sleep almost like every night of the week. And my stepdad like didn't really care, because it was like whatever. And that like destroyed me, because here I was, like I had finally gotten out of all of that like emotional unrest, the physical unrest and all of that, and finally stepped into a season where I was like, yo, I'm living it. And like I literally left my mom and my little sister in it. And it hurt me so bad, because like my mom was overworking herself, and this was like a Christian woman that like raised me single for most of my life. And I was like, dang, like even the strongest person in my life can still stumble because of a lack of rest. And that just, and that honestly destroyed me. And I think the second mindset he wants to keep us in is distracted. Because even though my mom, because when I confronted my mom about it, it was like a super dramatic scene, whatever. And she was like, there's just not time. Like, I have too much stuff. I'm trying to take care of your little sister, and your stepdad's always gone, so I have to like be home and also like try to work and balance all this stuff. And so I think like Satan in that season, now she's fine now, she's on rehab, all that stuff. Praise. And I was like, man, it's like once Satan gets you in there, he wants to like keep you in there. And it was just devastated me. And then eventually, like, I didn't stumble into that like lifestyle purposefully, but like, the more I was in the university lifestyle, like always going, because culture today culture doesn't want you to stop, because everyone wants to be on that grind, everyone wants to be on that hustle, and that's like low key the American dream though, because everyone wants a Ferrari or whatever your dream car is. I thought he would be here so I could make fun of him for this analogy, but Pastor Jared, he's been a huge father figure for me in my life. And when me, Mason, and TJ, who were a bunch of guys, started doing like more and more stuff for City Hope, it was Easter week. And so that was our first like big City Hope event for any of us. And Pastor Jared sits down at like this little, we took a food break, and he sits us down at this table and he goes, in his voice, "All right, boys." Anyway, he goes, I wanted him to be here so I could do that. But anyway, he goes, "How you boys feeling?" And in synchronization, we all said stressed. Because, like, we're traveling on the weekends, but we also want to do City Hope stuff. So we were like kind of stressed out, whatever. Because around that time was also Spring Spec, which is like a huge University Mobile event. And he started a little mini sermon, as he always does, and he taught us about the difference between being stressed and being stretched, which like this was a huge mindset shifter for me, especially in that season. And he told us how being stressed is always associated with such negative feelings. Like, because when you think about being stressed, you get stressed, and then it just keeps domino affecting. Whereas, like, if you shift your mindset, because like Easter last year was big. Like, we had the whole scrim and like all the lights and all that stuff, because that we had like completely redone. And it would be so easy to like walk through our ministries on a day-to-day basis, and if our mindset is just a little bit off because we're not getting rest. Because Pastor Danny gave us that whole sleep class about beta amyloid. Is that what it's called? And it's crazy how like there's essentially like a spiritual version of beta amyloid when we're not like with God, getting the rest that we need for ourselves. Then eventually our ministry is going to stumble because our mindset is wrong, because we're just thinking about being stressed out all the time. Where if we just shifted it a little bit, and we're like, hey, like there's something on the other side of this that God can teach me. Like, he's stretched, because there is I forgot that analogy. The analogy about like being bent, rubber band something. Anybody know?
Stretch it will eventually break, but if you stretch it more, it tends to...
Yes, elasticity, big brain. So that changed all three of our mindsets. We were like, yo, like that's crazy how like all you need is just a simple like shift in your mindset. But it's also important to know that like there are physical effects of not getting rest. Like there is the physical beta amyloid in your brain that like clouds, your thinking process, and then you start getting unhealthy. Because I struggled a lot with like just being that kid that was like, oh, I'm never gonna sleep. And then eventually like I got super anxious all the time and all that stuff. And the human body is meant to always be going. And it's important, I'm about to hit this verse too, but it's important to know that like physically, no matter how hard we want to grind, like it's not in us to, because like our Creator rested too. And that leads me to this next verse, which is Hebrews 4, 9 through 11. So then, there remains a Sabbath rest for the people of God, for whoever has entered God's rest has also rested from his works as God did from his. Let us therefore strive to enter that rest, so that no one may fall by the same sort of disobedience. This verse, when I read it, like was really eye-opening because like most of us don't realize that not taking a Sabbath and not taking that time to rest is like literally disobeying God. And then what really stuck out to me about this verse is that it says, as God did from his, because so many people are like God doesn't rest, or like, why do I have to rest? And it's like our literal creator who we're made in his image of takes time to rest. Like if you look at the life of Jesus, he wasn't like really in any rush. He was just vibing and chilling. There's a Greek word, and I'm gonna try to pronounce it, and Pastor Danny's gonna get mad at me. Poloipo, I think. How do you say it? Okay. Poloipo, and translate it from, so if you take the word rest in the Greek and you translate it, it ends up translating to balance, which is something that I think all of us in CHC specifically is a word that we need to like kind of live by, because most of us have jobs, if not all of us have jobs, and so we're trying to balance like work and school and like a lot of us relationships, not me though, and all these things that we're trying to like balance, but we forget that like in order to find that balance, we can't just skip out on a Sabbath. Me, Robbie, Hunter, AB, and Connor were at Mobile last semester, their trimester, and Pastor Josh gave us one for our campus pastor meetings, talked to us about rest and taking a Sabbath. And there's this one thing that he said to Robbie that was like one of the biggest mic slams or mic drops of all time. Because Robbie was like, yeah, but I can't miss. Robbie said something about like he couldn't miss a day of work. And Pastor Josh was like, what makes you think God can't do with 6 days what you think you could do by yourself in like 7 or something? And that was like so big for me, because I think so many of us were like, oh cool, like I'll try to take a Sabbath, but I can't, like I have to pay for stuff. Like I can't miss out on this. And then we're like denting our faith without even realizing that we're denting our faith, because we're not trusting that God can do as much like with that day with him than we could do just without a day with him on our own. But it's not just ourselves that lack of rest or getting good rest, because if you get good rest, then like, you know, your ministry can flourish and you can step into the calling that God has for you. But it's not just ourselves that rest affects, it's also our relationship with others. So if you're taking notes, that's my second point, because we've all heard the verse in James 3 where it says, not many of you should become teachers. Pastor Danny and his church should tell us all the time, ministry is not for everybody. It's a grind. And you know, if we're not leading ourselves in rest in our personal lives, how are we going to lead others?
Right.
We're all obviously going into this fast, and you know, there's already some days that everyone's irritated with each other because we see each other every day. You know, whether it's about laundry or any other kind of thing, people are gonna get irritated. And if we don't go about this fast in the right way, and we just like stress out, and we're always like, oh my gosh, like I'm so hungry, like if only I could, you know, go back to having the things that I had before we started this fast, then we're not going to keep the unity that we need. Because in Ephesians 4:1-3 it says, I therefore, a prisoner for the Lord, urge you to walk in a manner worthy of the calling to which you have been called, with all humility and gentleness, with patience, bearing with one another in love, eager to maintain the unity of the Spirit in the bond of peace. I think it's kind of hard to keep unity when you're cranky. Because personally, as much as I say I'm a morning person, I think it's less of like me being chill and more of me knowing that like in the morning, I'm so agitated at literally everything, so I decide not to talk. Because most people are like, oh, like Joey's so chill in the morning, and it's like, no, I'm not. I know that the second I open my mouth, it's gonna be something mean. Because, you know, like I really am a cranky person, and it's hard. We can't like enter ministry being cranky because we're missing out on rest.
Right.
It would be so easy for me on Wednesday nights when I deal with Nash Thomas, because most of you know him. It would be literally so easy for me to just you know, because he roasts me all the time, and it's mean. He calls me like 9-head or 11-head or whatever, and it would be so easy for me to just like enter that space, because not only is it Nash, but I also have 13 other, some nights 22 other, you know, 9th and 10th grade boys that all are like, oh yeah, let's just roast Joey. And if I don't take the time, because most Wednesdays I do actually have to like be intentional and take time to like discharge a little bit for that hour between campus pastor meetings and youth, to be like, hey, like I know that like today has been a long day at church, or I mean at school. And I know that I could easily enter this ministry moment with these boys super irritated and not actually teach them stuff if I'm not taking this little bit of moment to just pray about tonight and rest. Because otherwise, you know, Nash roasts me and then, you know, I might say something that makes him never come back. And so that's like a dangerous gamble to play. And then lastly, relationship affects, just brain fart. Rest and how we go about taking our personal rest affects our relationship with God. Most of my time in Minnesota looks like me literally laying on the ground in front of our fireplace, just opening my Bible. It was so quiet. That's the crazy thing. Like even now, like if I were to stop talking and we all listen for 30 seconds, you hear, or like train horns because trucks, you know, or horns or something. Like there's so much ambience to city life, and it was crazy to like just go to the middle of nowhere in Minnesota and sit in front of a fire and just like actually truly like completely discharge and just meet with God. And it's crazy how like I was thinking about how sure so many of us can say, oh yeah, I find rest in God, but not many people would be like, oh, I rest with God.
Right.
And Matthew 11:28-30 says, come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. One thing I found myself doing most Sabbaths that I take, so personally right now in my Sabbath, because I'm a dishwasher at Walk, my shifts are 5:30 till close at night, so I never work in the mornings. So I like split my Sabbath between all Friday morning through Friday afternoon and Saturday morning and afternoon. And what I found myself doing was like, yeah, I would take that time off, but like how would I spend it? And Christian sent, CP, he sent a message to the Malvis youth leaders the other night. And he really just like challenged all of us to really like reflect on how we were actually spending our Sabbaths. It was like, okay, yeah, you might actually be taking that time off, but what are you doing in that time? Because sure, I could play Xbox for a few hours, or I could watch Netflix. That's why I love how Pastor Danny is always like, Netflix isn't gonna do it, dude. But what's the point of taking that step of obedience if we're not meeting with the person that calls us to be obedient?
Right.
And a thing I found myself doing is not even spending my Sabbath with God. And so like going to Minnesota was a huge like mind shift, because I was like, it's crazy. You're like, yeah, everyone has a busy life. And sure, I can't just sit in front of a fireplace every single day of my life and just read my Bible. Like there's gonna be times where I can only read like 15 minutes, or there's gonna be times where I only get like 45 minutes. But it's all about like being intentional and resting with God. Because sure, like God provided a way for me to have that time off, and that would be considered, I think that would be considered like resting in God. Like, yeah, I have this time off. I'm not using it to like party or anything. Like I'm not really doing anything wrong, but I'm not spending time with my Father. And it's huge for me because, you know, I haven't really had like the greatest father life. And one thing I always like craved for was like actually spending time with like my dad, but unfortunately, like due to circumstances, that never really happened. But here's God, like the perfect father, like created me, like through the circumstances of my birth, which were like crazy, like brought me into this world when other people thought I shouldn't have, and like I'm choosing to not meet with him. on time that he blessed me with to have set apart. Sometimes I just make rest seem way harder than it needs to be. It's like, I can't just, did anybody, I hit a moment, I think it was like 2.5 weeks in to Christmas break, where I was like, I should be doing something right now. I was like, I think I woke up on a Thursday morning and I was like, I need to be in Old Testament. Even though that class is so hard, I like need to be in Old Testament. So many of us don't just like let God shift our mindset when we take that rest. Because if you're not actually like that verse earlier said, God also takes time to rest from his work. So like, cool, you can rest, you can take that time, but if you're still like, I gotta get back to this, I gotta get back to this, I gotta get back to this. My youth pastor growing up would always talk about, he would always talk about like, how sure you can come to youth, but if all you're going to youth for is what you can do after, then you're like missing the whole point. The same thing is with rest. If you take that time, but you're not engaging during that actual time to meet with God and be recharged, because if you never take that time to recharge, it's going to be so evident in your ministry. Because personal story, and Pastor Jared can tell you at Unique, like my spiritual life was crap. When Unique Week hit, my spiritual life was crap. I was so good at acting, like I had everything together, and then at Unique Week, during rehearsals and setup, I finally like broke, like randomly at Unique rehearsal, just started bawling my eyes out. And Pastor Jared was like, yo, what's going on? And all these emotional issues that I had built up because I wasn't letting God like deal with them, all of these things like built up, and like it caught him off guard because, according to everybody else, I'm this kid that's always just like grinding, like nothing ever phases me. But deep on the inside, like I wasn't meeting with God, I wasn't doing my quiet times. I was missing out on all this great like stuff I could have gotten from just taking a break and resting, and then it just boiled over. Like eventually it's gonna be evident that you're not taking rest. There is a verse in Matthew 8:24, and behold, there arose a great storm on the sea, so that the boat was being swamped by the waves, but he, Jesus, was asleep. In that, I loved Noah Heron. Was his last name Heron for Collective, that guy? I loved his analogy about the boat because I think, like, obviously, like, our ministry is the boat. And at Unique Week, like, yeah, I'm grinding, like, I'm trying to, like, be there, do lights, whatever. But all this storm is around me. And in so many of our lives, like we're on this ministry boat, right? And all this storm is going around, and then like Satan puts us in that like distracted mindset. We're like, yo, or like when Peter had his eyes on Jesus and was literally walking on water, and then he took his eyes off of him for literally just a second and started sinking. Yeah. If we let the storm get the best of us because we're not getting the rest that we need, we're gonna start freaking out while Jesus was just chilling. I was thinking about like how, and I wish somebody would have made a skit like on YouTube or something about like the disciples' viewpoint, how they're literally like freaking out. They're like, oh my gosh, like we're gonna die, like this is the biggest storm ever, whatever. And they look back at Jesus and he's just like just like literally slumped. Literally slumped, like I wonder if he was snoring or something, and then they're like, yo, like wake up, and he's like, huh? And I wonder if Jesus like actually fully woke up, or if he was like, like anybody wake up in the morning and you're really not functioning, but you're just like, and then you're like pouring your coffee, and you're like literally a zombie. Like I wonder if Jesus was just like, got up and he was like, huh? And then he was like, be still. And the disciples were like, yo, but like, so many of us get distracted by everything going on. And then we get so overwhelmed, like the psalmist I started with, by everything going on, and we're simply not taking the time. Now, eventually, the psalmist did finally realize the answer was God, because he ends the last line of that psalm. He talks about everything that he's going through. The very last line of that psalm is, but I'll trust in you. And sure, you may right now be like, yeah, my Christmas break was like, okay, but I didn't really get anything out of it. Well, were you like meeting with God, or did you just watch Netflix or Mean Girls or whatever TV show you watched? because it's so dangerous that it's so dangerous for us to take that time that God gives us to use to just meet with him. And then to just not use it. There's a song, as I close, there's a song by Carrie Job called Favorite Place. And I didn't want to play it because it's like a 13-minute song, but I just wanted to read, because there's really not that much lyrics. It's mostly like an instrumental. But the lyrics say this: I don't want to miss this moment. I don't want to miss one thing. Is there anything you want to tell me? I hang on every word you say. I'm longing for a fresh encounter, a wonder that I can't explain. Is there anything you want to show me? Your presence is my favorite place. If those aren't lyrics that you're like, yo, like I actually want to apply that to my life, then your ministry isn't really going to flourish. Your presence is my favorite place. That when I first listened to the song, I was like, yo, like that's crazy. Like, what really is my favorite place? Because a lot of what my personal rest life looks like is meeting with God and listening to music. But then is that necessarily my favorite place? Like, where do I find myself spending most of my time? You know, your screen time, your iPhone can actually track all that, which is kind of creepy. And it will actually tell you what you're spending so much of your time on. We're going into this fast, and Miss Trisha was like, yeah, we're doing the Daniel fast. You know, we're only eating green beans for the next 21 days. But you can also do a lifestyle fast. And I was like, oh, well, I just got my social media back. It can't be that much of an issue. And the first week I got my social media back, my screen time was like, yeah, you've gone up 110%. And I was like, how is that even possible? And then I realized, even though I'm trying to limit the amount of time I'm spending on this, how much time could I be spending with God? Rest is an integral part of our life, and it was a part of Jesus' life. So how can we be more like Jesus if we're not resting like he did?
Right, that's good.
Let me pray for us. Dear God, thank you so much for just this new season, God, this new year. God, and I pray that as we approach this year, God, we wouldn't just put you on the back burner, God, that we would take this time of fasting seriously, God, and in the moments where we crave the things that we're fasting from, God, we just take that time to meet and rest and be recharged by you. And I pray as we go about our day, today we would stay faithful to you, we would be patient with each other, God, to keep the unity, God, and I pray that we are all there for each other in this coming trimester. God, I pray for the Y2s as this is their second to last trimester. God, I pray that their ministries flourish. God, I pray that they take the time that they need to recharge so that they can put forth good effort in your ministry. In your name, amen.
Amen.
That was awesome. That was awesome. I love how, especially with this season in 3 weeks that's about to come up, the storm's about to get crazy, y'all. Especially with Y2s, you guys about to go into your last trimester. You're figuring out, what am I going to do in ministry? Where am I going to go? What does God have for me? This is a great challenge and a great way to just really find that rest and get in God's presence and figure that out. No better way than to do it with the fast. So I'm thank you for that, Joey. That was amazing. That really challenged me. I hope it challenged you guys.